Well, welcome everybody to day 13. Can you believe it? We're almost at the halfway mark for Video a Day, Debruary 2022. Today's guest is out of Atlanta. This is Trish Ahjel Roberts. Trish says that her mission is to help you slay self-doubt and limiting beliefs so you can juice up your life's journey and find mind-blowing happiness. She wants Black women to approach the new year with more support, with a focus on healing and personal growth. Trish says that Black people are exhausted and Black women often bear the burden for the entire Black community. We support Black men, we support Black children, but who supports us? How can Black women find joy and fulfillment? So, to provide that missing support, she left a career as a financial advisor and launched a company called Mind Blowing Happiness, LLC, to become a self-actualization coach and happiness expert working primarily with women like herself. So join me in welcoming Trish to Debruary. Oops. This is where we have technical difficulties. There you are. My goodness. I'm just having struggle moments over here.
I wanted to help you too, but I'm like, I think you got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I dropped my mouse and it just was kind of an awkward moment there, but there we go. So hi, Trish.
Hi, Deborrah. It's exciting to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
This should be good. And audience, you will have an opportunity to ask Trish some questions. In a little bit after we go along, we want to kind of lay the foundation out, lay a little groundwork out, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask her your questions as well. So Trish, let's start by describing what is self-doubt. When we use that term, what does that mean and what does it look like as far as, how we might act or things that we might say, how that we would understand that that's what's going on with us.
Yeah. So, the data that's out there says about 85% of people experience self-doubt. I really think it's more like 100% of us that have self-doubt at some point. But it's not the doubt when you don't know how to do something. Like if you don't know how to swim, it's not self-doubt if you don't go swimming. Self-doubt is when you're not sure of your abilities, but typically it has to do with your belief system, limiting beliefs that keep you from doing the things that you can absolutely do. So
So
a
does
lot of,
self-doubt basically keep people from even trying? I mean, I know, we're not
yeah.
going to be 100% successful like we are in our fantasies with an S on our chest, rolling through like Superman. But, you know, are you saying that people that doubt themselves will just actually not even take that first step?
Many times that's the case. It can be tied into fear. But the surprising thing about self doubt, and if you've ever heard the term imposter syndrome, which deals with, high achieving people who have really accomplished a lot, many times it's those people who are actually experiencing more self doubt than the people who are not as much of a high achiever. So self doubt really affects all of us. But if you look at data for these high achievers who have imposter syndrome, it definitely affects women more. It definitely affects Black women, women of color, marginalized people more, just because of the nature of the societies that we live in.
Oh, that's terrible. So why do you think, I mean, is this like a personality thing or is this something that develops in us as we are exposed to different experiences and go through life? Like an innate personality trait, I guess that's a better way to phrase it.
Yeah, I
Or is
mean,
it something that kind of happens to us?
yeah, I mean, I would imagine, like when we look at happiness data, we're all born with a different happiness set point. So babies do have personalities. So I would imagine some would be more confident than others. So there's got to be that element in there. But for a lot of us, self-doubt is something that happens over time. It can happen from the way we were raised, the things that our parents might have said to us. It could be society's messages, the media's messages telling us what we can and can't do, or a lot of times it's not verbal messages, they're images that tell us whether or not you can be president or you can be the CEO of a company or just whatever it is. For a lot of us, we may not be thinking of being CEO of a company. We might want to have a business, though. We might want to be an entrepreneur, or do a different type of job.
Right.
So yeah, it comes from different messages throughout our lives for sure.
Well, you made a huge career change. I was just scratching my head like, how in the world
Doing
did
right.
she, did she, it's like they don't even seem like they are on the same book, let alone the same page. So how did you, I mean, what motivated you to do that? And just it's such a completely opposite kind of career path.
I can tell you. So there were two big events that really impacted that decision. The first one was in 2010, where I was working as a financial advisor and my relationship wasn't working out. The job wasn't working out. Finance was really difficult for Black people and women. Um, and I decided to Google meditation because I thought, okay, well, maybe I could find something to help me get myself together. so, so I remember Googling meditation, drove to this meditation studio. It looked like a country house, like at the end of a gravel road or whatever. So I walk in the door. There's this, nice middle-aged lady with khaki pants and a white shirt or whatever. And she took me inside and she said, you're the only one here. I'm not sure if you want to do the meditation I had planned for today. And I was like, well, I've never meditated before, so whatever it is good. So she kind of scrunched up her nose, and I was like, okay. And then she says, well, we're going to meditate about death. So
Oh yeah, yeah, let's just do that.
I'm like, okay, well, that sounds great. So my first meditation was this meditation about death, and it ended up being really powerful and almost feeling like a near-death experience. We had this mantra that she had me say over and over again. It was, I could die today. I could die today. So I was like,
Okay.
oh. So anyway, so that was the first experience, which was kind of crazy. I jumped in my car, rode back home thinking, okay, it felt like kind of refreshing in a way because we don't usually think about dying. And I certainly didn't expect that from that experience. But after that, I started studying Buddhism and meditation. I got into yoga. So I started learning all of these different things. I started hiking. And then it was 8 years after that. I was still working as a financial advisor. It was still very difficult. And I was jumping in my car on the way to the office. I was going to get a projector for this presentation I had to do. I was driving maybe 10 minutes. I was listening to Oprah's Wisdom of Sundays. You ever hear her? I don't know if you ever saw her Sunday show.
No.
But driving for 10 minutes, the back of the car, boof, I got slammed by an 18-wheeler. Started
Get out of
spinning.
here.
I heard screaming, Deborah. I realized it was me, and I ended up going headfirst into the divider. And that was the second thing where it was kind of like I could die today. It was kind of like, was that same message again? And it really just made me think, well, am I doing the work that I want to do? I've been doing this work for a long time. Is this really what I want to do? What do I want to do? So it was kind of a come to Jesus moment. And from there, a year later, I launched my business.
Get out, girl, go work it. I'm telling you, that gave me the chills. You're the second guest that we've had though that was explained that they made this switch to this kind of thinking and this kind of career, I guess was the best way to put it, after an experience like that. This is really, see, I like to make that change, but I don't want to have to face I might die this very moment. I'm not trying to do that.
I mean, it makes a decent story now, but at the time it was kind of like, what on earth? But I
Like, who is
figured,
that screaming? I'm sorry, Trish, but that was funny.
you know, it's crazy because it changed my life. I would have probably just kept plugging along doing what I was doing, you know, and now I love what I'm doing. And I can teach other
Oh, it
people
shows
how
on
to
your face.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, how to really live a life doing work that you love. So, and I,
So
I do
tell
hope,
how do people get the courage to do that?
I,
To try something that's so completely off their radar, but feel confident that this is the path that they need to take.
well, I always give my disclaimer. I don't want anybody to go quit their job because they listen to us today and they just decide, you know what, I'm doing something else. So there's a process. And what happened for me from that first instance when I started studying something new, I started meeting new people. I created a community out here. It's a meetup group. There's like 5,000 people in this group now. So I started
Wow.
establishing connections in areas that really kind of set my soul on fire. So it didn't feel like work, but I was exploring the things that I really enjoyed and the things that I was really good at, and releasing some of the ideas that I had about what kind of work I was supposed to do, that I got from my parents, honestly,
Right.
you know, or, maybe from society too, what kind of jobs were kind of like a good job for a Black woman, or a secure job or a stable
Right.
job, you know. Um, yeah, so I really had to shift my thinking. And I did that using, a lot of different tools. And now I teach a lot of those things. So,
Oh, that's great. Well, let's talk about happiness for a minute because I noticed as I was, after we confirmed your guest appearance, I started listening to people's conversations. And so many of them would associate happiness with some future thing that they had to buy, some future
mhm.
thing that they had to acquire, some future thing that they had to be, like married or have a boyfriend or have a baby, or, well, if I do this thing or if I get this thing, then I'll be happy.
Mhm.
What do you say to people like that? Why can't you? I mean, can't we just be happy with what we got right now? I
Yeah,
mean, is this such a
yes,
foreign
you can.
concept?
That yes, you can. But many that's so common. And a lot of it is rooted in the way our society is structured. We have a capitalist economy. So we always have messages telling us, if you drive this car, you'll be happy. If you live in this house, you'll be happy. If you take this vacation, you'll be happy. When you look at the data, it says 20% of our happiness is based on circumstance. So, the house, the car, the marriage, those things. I was telling you before, 40% is what we're born with. And then the
Right.
other 40% is things that you can do. That's the part that you can really control no matter what your circumstances are. Mhm.
So your mindset. Okay, let me I want to put
And
the
the kind
link
of the
here.
kind of mindfulness you're talking about is one of the things that makes people happy. Learning
Well,
to be happy with what you have.
yeah, that seemed to be, because it seems like if you're not happy with where you are, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't have goals and things like that, but I mean,
Mhm.
why can't you be happy with make your happiness right now and then you can get more happiness? That's the way I like to look at it.
Well, that's the thing. You already have the magic, Deborah. That's because that's what it is.
Oh,
A lot of people, really do struggle with that.
that's well, I just put the link in there, ladies. If you have a question that you would like to pose to our guest about happiness or turning your life around or your struggle you may be having with your own doubts and lack of confidence or belief in yourself, those kinds of things, you can type your question in and I'll put it across the screen for Trish to respond to. So, wow, that's kind of amazing. So how do we when we talk the show is titled, slaying self-doubt. How do we do that?
Yeah, so I have 10 tips. I don't know if you want 10 or you just want a couple of them.
Mm, as many as you want to give us. This is
Okay.
your interview.
Okay. Well, I love talking about slaying self-doubt. First of all, I just love saying slay. That word
I
just makes
know.
me happy. Like,
That got my
I
attention too, because I immediately thought about
yeah, like we're just gonna kill it. And self-doubt, I'm a coach and I work with clients all the time. And I was really surprised when I first started getting into this business that self-doubt just comes up over and over again. It's the thing that keeps us from reaching our goals and our dreams. So the first thing that I give as a tip is first acknowledge your feelings. I remember a time when I was scared to admit that I even experienced self-doubt because I was supposed to be the baddest bee on the block. I don't know how much I can say on this show,
oh yeah,
but
we that part that works. Yeah, I
okay.
try to keep it at least like PG-ish.
All right, I got you. But yeah, like I didn't even want anyone to think that I experienced it. So being able to even write it on a piece of paper, acknowledge it was huge. And you can't change anything if you don't acknowledge it. So the
Right.
first step is really to acknowledge that, wow, I don't always have, my best confidence, or lack of confidence is keeping me from maybe pursuing a promotion or pursuing entrepreneurship or writing my first book or, whatever. So just acknowledging it is really the first step. The second thing that I encourage really for everybody is to get into a journaling habit.
Mm.
Because for most of us, if you don't write it down, and they have studies about the connection between the brain and writing, even for students in school studying, taking their notes by hand instead of typing them. But for most of us, if we don't write it down, we can have like about 500 ideas just kind of knocking around that don't really, that don't really get any direction.
Right.
Yeah, so journaling is a big one as well. And I have one I'll share with your audience if you don't mind, because
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I do 7 questions every week for myself, and I recommend it for my clients. I do it like once a week on Sundays. But you can ask yourself for each week, what did you accomplish? What did you learn? What are you most proud of? What are you thankful for? What are you excited about for the upcoming week? How are you going to celebrate your accomplishments? And people struggle with the celebration, but I always say no alcohol, no food in your celebration, because otherwise you can get into bad habits.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, what is your number one priority for the upcoming week? So it really, helps you acknowledge your accomplishments, which helps with self-doubt. It tracks your progress, which helps with self-doubt. It keeps you focused. So it really is a great tool.
That's a really, really good idea. And I think a lot of women feel like, there's a conflict there, especially with Black women. This message that we're supposed to be humble. I hate that word. Let me just go on
Mhm.
record. I don't understand why do we have to feel ashamed of what we've accomplished and the strides that we've made? Why do we have to hide behind some label that pleases other people, makes them feel like, well, she's humble means you're not really, bragging on yourself or whatever. But I mean, if you put in the work, you
Yeah,
deserve to pat yourself on the back. You should be able
yeah,
to discuss your accomplishments openly and
absolutely.
without embarrassment.
Absolutely. And you'd be surprised with that journaling exercise. Some women, like what you're talking about, will have trouble even writing it down. Like they may feel
Wow.
guilty even writing it down. So it's a great exercise to get out of that habit. But there's always two sides to every coin, right? Because you want to be able to talk about your accomplishments, show up confidently in a space. But at the same time, you don't want to be that person, right? Who's
Well,
just
yeah. You don't have to walk into the room saying, yes. But if
yeah,
someone says, "Can you do such and such?" you can say, "Yes, I've done that before. I have this
yeah,
much experience at that. This is how these were the results of what I, put together, what I tried to do." And, you know, just not feel like, well, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I made it happen, but it was just the
right,
luck of something. They downplay their
right,
experience and their
right.
knowledge and expertise.
It's almost like you want to be confident without being condescending. So you want to show up, be able to tell what you did, but not do it to the point where you're looking down on other people. Because I think when people talk about being humble, that's what they're talking about. Like if you become Oprah or somebody who's really huge, you don't want your head to get so big that you can't go through doors anymore, you know? Because
Oh,
no, you might, right? You might start thinking, wow, I'm so smart. So I think that's what they mean when they say stay humble.
okay. Let's
You
let's
may
get
not
you a
like the
couple of
word,
questions.
but maybe a different word.
Yeah, I understand the concept. Let's see. Here's a
Hmm.
question for you. How do you build yourself up in a way that's lasting but doesn't waver? Positive self-talk, for instance, is temporary. Hmm.
I am so glad you said positive self-talk because that's one of my favorites. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like I understand what you say. It's temporary because if you don't have anything to back it up, then it's just going to be talk. But the way that we talk to ourselves is so important. And if you can change it, like even instead of saying I can't, right, which is completely defeatist, right? You can say change that to I will or I won't. So then you're taking your power back and you're deciding what you want to do. And once you learn how to speak to yourself a different way permanently, it will change your actions. It's not the only thing, but it will change the way that you kind of show up in a room and the way that you show up for your own personal goals and your personal tasks. But as far as building yourself up, you have to stay on top of your game. So, like if you're in a field, you want to make sure you're reading in the field, you're following podcasts, you're listening to audiobooks, that you know what's going on so that you're actually leveling up your skills in whatever field it is that you want to be in. And what else was I going to tell you? Oh, and also keep current with current events. I meet a lot of people where they say, oh, the news is stressful. I don't want to watch the news. It's hard to really be confident if you don't know what's going on. So for me, I don't know what it's like to watch TV because I don't need to see all the images all the time. But I will at least read. Yeah, I'll at least read every day. Sign up for some newsletters. I get the New York Times, but there's others. There's one like the Skim. There are different ones. CNN. You can get updates so that you know what's going on, because you don't want to be in a space either where someone says something to you and you're kind of like a deer in the headlights. So I hope that I hope that helps. I can't tell you.
We have another question for you too.
Tell me they get the news from their friends. I'm like, stop getting the news from your friends.
Yeah, you can get it online. It's real easy. Just set up a feed and there you go.
Yeah, just make sure they're good news sources because there's a lot of funky stuff out there as well.
So she wants to know how to stop comparing herself to her peers.
Yeah, some things are mental habits. And, there was a time when I used to I didn't bite my nails. I used to bite the little skin at the edge of my nails, which is disgusting. And I had to just kind of sit on my hands until I could stop doing it. So to me, unless it's something clinical, where it's very deep and you might need to work with a therapist or something like that. For most of us, we have mental habits and we can change them. So you're in the habit of comparing yourself to your peers. The reality is you're a unique individual. Nobody else has your life story. Nobody else has your skills or your talents. Your task might be to uncover what those things are because you probably don't know. If I had to pick a number, I would say maybe 40% of people are self-aware. We're not born being self-aware. We have to discover what we like, what we don't like, what we're interested in, what we're not interested in. We have to try things out and kind of figure things out. Usually we start off being told who we are or who we're supposed to be by our parents or by society. And you could go through your whole life like that, just thinking that you are who your mom said you are, So I would really encourage you to do some work. I have books and all kinds of good stuff we'll talk about on my website that you can access. But I would encourage you to do some work and find out, I'm probably going to mess up your name, Salins or Salin, I'm not sure. But find out what you like and what you don't like. And then you will create this whole identity that is your authentic self. And when you're your authentic self walking into a room, you're not worried about what anybody else in the room is doing. So
right. Thank you. That was a good answer. I hope that helps you out. And so I see some people making comments. You have to pose your comment as a question. Okay, so there has to be a question component to it, and then I will put it on the screen. Otherwise, I'm thinking you're just making a comment to the other chatters, and it's just going to sit there. Okay, so make your question. So I wanted to ask you this. You use the term juicy. It's a juicy
I love that
life.
Word.
It's juicy.
That's like you're humble that you hate. I love juicy.
So what is a juicy life?
The thing is, to me, juicy is just ripe and delicious. And, it's just what you want to roll around in. But what I consider a juicy life is a joyful, deeply fulfilling, self-aware, self-actualized life. Now, I use the word self-actualization. A lot of people aren't that familiar with that word. That's why I came up with the term mind-blowing happiness. So that's kind of my term for self-actualization. Can I talk a little bit about
what
that
means? Please do. That was going to be my next question, but go ahead. Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. So there was a psychologist named Abraham Maslow who came up with this idea of a needs hierarchy, which basically says that people start off, getting their basic needs met, like shelter and food and stuff like that. And then once those needs are met, then we want a little more. We want people to look up to us. We want self-esteem. We want to have a feeling of significance in a crowd. Those kind of things. And then at the pinnacle, when you get all the way to the top, which is kind of like what we're all trying to do through our life's journey, is what he calls self-actualization. And that is always including some level of creativity. So it could be, maybe you're into traditional creative things like painting or drawing or dancing or, those kind of things. Or it could be something creative like starting a business. It could be cooking. It could be anything that you design yourself. And through this kind of creation of something unique that only you could create, because right, only you have your own particular
Right.
background, then you reach your highest levels of joy and fulfillment. And it includes, of course, having relationships in order and community, but it's really just the peak of a fulfilling life. And my theory why this is so important to me, Deborah, is that we wouldn't have a world where people were trying to hurt each other and pull each other apart if we were on this journey.
Right.
And for most of us, we may never get to a point where we're like, oh my God, this is it. I've reached the mountaintop. But even if we're doing 20% better, if all of us were feeling 20% more confident, 20% happier, 20% better about ourselves, if we were helping 20% more people than normal, I mean, think about the shift. Like, that's huge.
That
So
is. That would be great.
I'm a little obsessed with it.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's a good thing to be obsessed about. So we
Yes,
have another
what a
question here.
juicy, mind-blowingly happy life. Let's get it.
She says, as a tall woman, I feel self doubt when I'm among other women and feel looked over. How tall are we talking about, Tasha? Can you let us know? Type that in the chat room so we can see.
Well, I will say this, Tasha. You could equally have written that same sentence as a short woman, or you could have written that sentence as an average height woman. So I don't think it's a function of your height. There are incredible models who are 6 feet plus that have men drooling all over them and women thinking, oh my God, if only I were this tall, so it's all relative. And then there are women who are 4'11" or 5 feet tall who are wearing really, really high heels, trying to get anywhere close to where you are. So, I mean, when you say you're a tall woman, a lot of us are like, man, I wish I were Tasha, you know?
Right. Like for instance, you have to go up on. I have a step stool. I have to go. So she's 5'10". It's like every
Okay.
woman in my family, except me, is at least 5'9". At least. Okay. I'm the only one that's 5 feet 5.
Okay.
And as me, I feel like I'm one of the kids when I get around them. And they'll wear their 4-inch high boots and heels and all kind of stuff.
Mhm.
They are not tripping about their height. So, and all of them have, wonderful husbands, boyfriends, whatever. So I'm not, I think that, Tasha, she's trying to tell you the right thing. It's not your height, it's something
It's not
else.
right. Because 5'10" is amazing. That's a beautiful height. I thought you were like 6 feet or over 6 feet, which I know is a little bit more difficult for women.
Right.
But 5'10" is that's like Tyra Banks' height. Girl.
I know. But people, I don't know, they focus on what they focus on. But I liked your response, Trish. That was good.
There is
Okay.
something that I can mention to you too called a negativity bias, because we tend to focus on the negative. And it kind of goes back to our caveman days. I guess we needed to know if there was a bear in the bushes or something more than we needed to know, how soft our rock that we were sleeping on for the night was, or how, I don't know how that worked. But I don't know what they were sleeping on. But yeah, we all have this tendency to focus on the negative. And it's in our DNA, you know? So like you could have a day where everything went great, and then one person said the wrong thing to you. And what are you going to talk about at the end of the day? That one person,
Right.
you know? So it's a mental habit, and you can work on it. We don't have to we don't have to focus on the one thing. The first thing is being aware of it, just knowing that that's even happening.
That's a good point. Here's another question from B. Howard. She wants to know how you handle or deal with self-doubt after rejection or failing at a task. That rejection is a big one, because this channel deals a lot with relationships, of course, and most of the people are
Mhm.
single, and so they're trying to get something going, so they have to deal with a lot of rejection, both the males and the females.
All right, well, I got an answer for you. You ready?
I'm,
So,
I'm ready.
so listen, everybody hates rejection, right? The only good thing about rejection is that it means that you showed up. So I'm a runner, right? I congratulate myself when I show up at the starting line. I don't worry about my time. You know, my time is going to be what it is. But the fact that I actually woke up, because usually I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and showed up, put my sneakers on, got my little water together, showing up is like 99%. Now, the fact of the matter is, you're going to get rejected sometimes, but the people who never show up aren't going to get rejected, if that makes sense. This is one of the things that I'd say to my daughter. You know, sometimes she'll be stressed out or worried, or she didn't do well on a test, or, whatever it is. I'm like, if you're sitting home watching Netflix, binge watching, nothing against nothing against Netflix. I love Netflix. But if you're sitting home doing nothing, you're not going to get rejected.
Right.
You can just sit there doing nothing, feeling confidently doing nothing, right? So the rejection is kind of a side effect of you being amazing and putting yourself out there. So I would encourage you to find some way to celebrate, as wonky as that sounds, because you're not celebrating the rejection, you're celebrating showing up.
And having the courage to do so. So there you go, B. Howard. Here's
Hmm.
another question from Flo. Since I feel like I could have been way more advanced in certain areas of my life if I were more consistent with my effort. How can I let go of the guilt I feel about that?
Hey, Flo, that is so common. I I get a lot of women who feel guilty. So it could be guilt, and a lot of times it's guilt for things that we didn't do or we thought we should have done differently. The biggest thing that you can do is make a decision to move forward in some way. The past is the past, you can't change it. We all kind of do the best that we can with the tools that we have in the moment that we have them. But when you get the opportunity to do something different, go for it. Guilt is also a mental habit. It's another one of those things. I work a lot with clients on guilt, but it's something that you can turn around. You could even use self-talk or affirmations to kind of help you turn around some of the guilt. Because
When we
unless you
just did a show, we had a
never
guest, and that was her whole talk was on guilt. So you might want to look that up, Flo, and take a look at that video. It's just the other day.
Yeah, it's amazing because you have people who are killing people who don't feel guilty, and then you have, women who, maybe they didn't finish their bachelor's degree or something, and they're like
And
super guilty about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but yeah, she went into a great explanation about it. So I think that would be a good, kind of reinforce what you just said for
Yeah,
her.
that sounds good.
Okay, Charlene and Samson is here. What can you do if you're not getting the results that you want? How do you overcome losses in life without self-doubt creeping in?
Yeah, so what can you do if you're not getting the results that you want? So, the book next to me is 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness, and one of the hardest steps that I had to learn was surrender. Because the reality is, you're not always going to get what you want. No matter how fantastic you are, no matter how great you show up to the game, no matter how much studying you do, there are going to be times when you don't get the results that you want. So you have to learn to control what you can control. You can control your effort. You can control what you bring to the table. You can make sure that you're, doing everything that you possibly can do, but the results are going to be out of your control. And sometimes I know in my life, sometimes I've worked really hard for stuff, and then when I got it, I didn't want it. Sometimes you just have to say, well, you know what?
Ooh,
Maybe
Trish.
I'll just go with the flow. Look, those were some men too, right? But
Yeah, you know that's where I went. It's like, ooh, this is not the prize I thought it was.
exactly. So sometimes you just have to let the end result just be what it is and stay focused on you doing your best. And you said, how do you overcome losses without self-doubt creeping in? I think self-doubt is always going to be something that creeps in, and you just have to keep working on it. I have some more self-doubt tips. You want a couple more?
Yes, and
Well,
then
right.
I did want you to talk about what your company does too.
Okay, yeah. So self-doubt, another tip that I would give you is to get into community. I talked about acknowledging that it was happening to you. I think it's so important that you are in community with other people because we do not function well when we're isolated. We really saw this during the pandemic. Um,
Yes.
that isolation is really messing up people's mental health, messing up their confidence. We need to stay connected. Um, and let me see. I talked about most of these actually. Another one that I'll share and then I'll get into the business stuff is questioning those limiting beliefs. And if you don't know what a limiting belief is, it's something that you believe to be true that keeps you from moving forward. So it's not the stuff that you believe that really feels good. It might be something like, one of the ladies earlier who said she was too tall and she thought that that was keeping her from obtaining something. Or it could be, and you could see when we actually examined it, we realized that that's really not the thing. So that's a perfect example of a limiting belief. It could be like I've had a client say, well, I'd really like to do this, but I'm not an entrepreneur. Well, guess what? Nobody is until they decide that they want to have a business. Nobody's born an entrepreneur. So that's like an idea of limiting beliefs. So I would examine, like, if you have things about yourself that you think are holding you back, I would write them down and then really look at them and see if they're true. Because another one that's really common is, not having access to resources. But I think if you're living someplace where you can access Google, you can access so many resources that are free, that are unbelievable. So, yeah.
Okay, we got one more question for you from Ash, and then we're going to go into what Mind Blowing Happiness LLC does.
Okay, yeah.
So Ash asks, are self-doubt and self-esteem connected? Is there a difference?
I think everybody experiences self-doubt, and that's kind of fluid. It could be depending on what you're doing in the moment. If you're looking at going for a promotion, if you're looking at learning how to roller skate, if you're looking at dating, so that's more of a fluid thing. I think self-esteem overall is more static, so if you generally don't feel good about yourself, then that would be your self-esteem. The good news is either one of them can be changed. Everything requires some effort, right? It's not going to be, throw some fairy dust in the air and just let it all fall down on you. It requires some work, maybe some books or some journaling. I have lots of tools for you guys, but that's my good news, Ash. They can both be improved.
Excellent. Thanks,
Yeah.
Trish. Okay, thanks, Ash. Okay, so let's talk about your mind-blowing happiness. And you set up a what you call it, a 12-month book club.
I do have a 12-month book club. I have a lot of goodies for you guys. So my business is really the books. I'm an author. So I have 3 published books. I have a couple of ebooks that you guys can download for free. And I'm a coach. So I work primarily as a self-actualization coach, but because of my background in finance, Deborah, I figured out a way for it to all make sense. So I also coach in business and finance, diversity. So clients will come to me typically to kind of get them from point A to point B, reaching the goals that they want to reach in their life. But then sometimes we'll do sessions around things like personal finance or branding and things like that. So
Oh
that's
wow.
yeah, so that's the coaching part of the business. And then the last piece is that I'm a speaker. So I love going to organizations and I speak on a lot of topics. Some of them are around diversity, some are around the conversation we were having today about happiness and self doubt, um, reaching peak potential. So that's what I do.
Excellent. So you were saying you had some a URL you wanted to provide them that
Yeah,
had some treats for the viewers.
I do. And I just set it up today. So I'm excited about it. So if you go on my website, you can go either to my name, which is trishahjelroberts.com, or because I know nobody can really spell my name, you can just go to mindblowinghappiness.com. And if you click in the upper right, there's a button that says Start Here. And on that page, it's going to give you access to 3 fantastic freebies. So the first one is a one-on-one 30-minute coaching session with me, and we'll do it on Zoom. By the time you walk away, you'll know what the 8 main life areas are. We'll select 2 areas for you to work on, and you'll walk away with at least 2 action steps. So it's great. It's free. We'll get to meet each other. I'm excited about that. And
Oh, wow, that is so generous,
I
Trish.
know, I'm excited. And the other 2 freebies, one is that you can access the Mind Blowing Happiness Circle, which is a monthly webinar that I do. The first 30 days are free. And right now there are 3 webinars that are in there already. So as soon as you access them, you'll be able to learn, you'll see my presentation on mind blowing happiness, slaying self doubt, healing, the power of healing, and the root of spirituality. So all good stuff. And then the other freebie is you can get the download of the Mind Blowing Happiness Guide to Self-Care, which is a free ebook. But the website is mindblowinghappiness.com, and just click get started. No, I'm sorry, click Start Here. I'm so excited, I'm messing it up.
Okay, I put all that in the chat to remind everyone, and with the links to the 2 sites. So
This was so fun, Deborah.
this was you were just a hoot.
But I love the questions. I loved it. This was great.
Yeah, I can tell they liked you, so this is wonderful. So thank you so much, Trish. We won't be keeping you all day here. We could talk about this topic for hours.
I know, but this was good. Thanks so much, Deborah. Thank you for
You
having
are
me.
very welcome. I'll talk to you later.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming to Debruary. Everybody, that was Trish, and she look at all the nice things she set up for you. I mean, that is some amazing generosity. I'm very, very happy that she offered those things, and I hope some of you, that are struggling with those issues, even if you're not here today, you'll be listening to the video later, and later this week or tomorrow or later today even. Check out her websites, and if you really are struggling like that, to reach out and take advantage of one of those free downloads or the 30-minute freebie consult that she has offered. Wasn't that, she says, honestly, she was so dope. That was great. So let me tell you guys about what's coming up. We got at 4 o'clock today an upload with Annette Simmons called Find Your Power. And then tomorrow, which is Monday and Valentine's Day, we got Your Purpose is Calling with Davina Ware. Okay, that's at 6. Then at 6 on Tuesday, of course, is What the Fuck Tuesday. And I'm also thinking about, I got a couple of requests to do that $8, instant advice type show. So I'm considering doing something like that once a month starting in March. We'll give that some thought, and make that opportunity, because not everybody's letter gets chosen for the What the Fuck Tuesday. A lot of people get, we don't pick their letters. So for people who want an absolute positive response, that's going to be the way to go. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. She was dope, huh? She was good. I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. Let me see. I'm looking for something here. What am I looking for? Oh, right. Here we go. So you guys, come on through tomorrow, 6 p.m. Watch the show with Davina, and at 4 p.m. today with Annette Simmons. And I will see you guys on the next live stream, and then definitely on Tuesday. Okay?